your headache.
The Tuesday, January 6th Parks and Recreation Committee meeting to order. First order of business is citizen communication. We have 4 citizens signed up to speak. If you'll go to the podium when I call your name, you'll have 3 minutes. I'll run a timer. First on our list is Jim Deck.
Hi, good evening. I've met a couple of you. It's nice to meet you first time here. So my name is Jim Deck. I'm the VP of Officials for the Williamson County Soccer Association right over here. I started playing there in 1983, started reffing there in 1984, so I've been here a while. Love the association, love the county. And essentially, I just want to come here and meet some of you. I just saw that tonight's schedule was for CapEx, so I'm like, that's exactly why I was here, was to see how it is we can go about getting some of our dilapidated buildings that have holes in them, that don't have HVACs that actually work, and plumbing that's kind of questionable at times, how we can go about getting that on an agenda to get that fixed. And essentially just kind of start learning, how it is, everything kind of runs here with you guys, because honestly, I've never dealt at the county level of much of anything. I'm a corporate person, and military. So you're going to be seeing a whole lot more of me from here on out, but essentially I just want to learn how everything's going on and what I can do to make some things happen, hopefully for our organization, to make things better for the county and the kids. I mean, we put through roughly 6,000 kids a season in outdoor and another 4,000 indoor.
Correct.
So between 3 indoor seasons. So we do a lot. There's 2 major tournaments, that are out there at those fields, that TSC hosts. It brings in a lot of revenue for the county and for the city of Franklin and everything. So again, just hoping to meet everybody, understand a little better how the county functions, and see what we can do about getting some things done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi.
Hi.
Just curious, where's your building or buildings located in the county?
It's on Downs Boulevard. We're right there on the soccer complex.
Boyd Mill, intersection of Boyd Mill and Downs.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, next up is Miss Jackie Picard, and I should have said at the beginning that typically during citizen communication, we don't comment, we just sit and listen, and occasionally a commissioner might have a question, so anyway.
Thank you.
A little less formal in committee than the big meeting. So, Ms. Picard?
Hi, I'm Jackie Picard, Williamson County Soccer Association. Anyways, it's kind of what Jim already said, same thing. We wanted to see how we could give back to and see how this all works for the children, since our program we're still trying to grow, and how we can improve it. And the best way to do that is kind of figure out what's going on here so we could help along the same way. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, next up is Miss Angela Walsh.
Hello, Angela Walsh, College Grove Athletics. I'm here to shine some light on the recent contract that we've had to sign with Williamson County Parks and Rec, and our disappointment that it really doesn't reflect how our smaller volunteer-based organization actually works with the county and has worked with the county since 1993. And in our conversations, a lot of it is laws that have come down from Nashville, and some of the unintended consequences for our smaller communities are now placing the burden for administration on us, asking our volunteers to do more. So I was kind of joking around. I stand here as the president of an organization my son has never even played a season for, because no one else will do it. So we're hoping, again, just to shine some light on the process, if there's anything that can be done. I know there's some other similar organized groups that are taking a little bit firmer stance to some of the liability that we're being shouldered with, and the administration costs. We've raised fees by 25% for some of our programs already to cover those things, and people aren't happy, which is good. If we don't make some noise, no one knows there's a problem. So that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, and last I've got Mr. Charles McConnell.
Hi, my name is Charles McConnell, and I'm here on behalf of East Williamson Athletics, or East Williamson Sports, a local nonprofit community youth sports organization. We largely support Parks and Rec and their programs. And I'm here again, just to echo what Angela said before me. The new facilities use contract places a tremendous burden on the smaller 100% volunteer youth organizations. We view ourselves as a partner with Parks and Rec in helping them provide a community service that now we are tasked and bear the burdens of personal risk so that the county can provide the service. And honestly, that's just not an equitable relationship. It's going to put a tremendous strain on our organization. It's going to put a tremendous strain on our coaches, our other volunteers. The contract's very heavy-handed. The contract attempts to, in my interpretation, adjudicate law that's not been decided. And while clubs like Brentwood or Nolansville, who are much larger, have thousands of participants, our small organizations with hundreds just don't have the resources to absorb these costs and these time commitments, as well as these other organizations can. In my interpretation of the law of what's being imposed upon us, it puts organizations such as EWA, College Grove, Bethesda at risk of being ran out because of the burden to our volunteers, the time commitment. I alone have spent the past month probably 100 hours volunteering to make adjustments in response to this contract. We're not there yet. We're not there in making all the changes and trying to figure out how do we survive in this new era that's being dictated to us. And I would like to see this commission work to facilitate a better relationship between organizations such as East Williamson with Parks and Rec, with the county, so we continue to thrive, continue to grow, and continue to provide local athletics to our communities, where our families who go to the same schools, who can come together in our county parks that our tax dollars have gone to fund largely, and continue to improve those facilities, continue to create a safe environment for children to thrive, not just to develop athletic skills, but to learn life lessons. And that's really what recreational sports is about, is an access for every child to come and learn something on a different field, and not the academic field, but the athletic field. And we'd like to continue to be able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that is our last citizens communications, so we will move to the next order of business, which is acceptance of the minutes from Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Can I get a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. All right, any discussion or corrections? All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, Ms. Carolyn? All right. First resolution is 1267, a resolution appropriating and amending the 2025-26 Parks and Recreation budget by $64,402.50, revenues to come from donations. Motion from Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lawrence. Mr. Gordon.
Using this as a mic? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for showing up tonight. I appreciate your willingness to get out in the evening and come in and share in this process. So thank you for being here. Commissioners, this particular resolution is a typical one that you see from us regularly. There's $64,000 worth of donations that have come in from various, either collecting from the associations to pay for services. And also there's been some donations of $1,000 towards performing arts and $600 that's going directly to support programs at Peacock Hill Nature Park. And you can see those line items that those revenues are going to be put into to cover expenses. So I can answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Commissioner Clifford. All right, seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mark it unanimous, Ms. Carolyn. All right, next resolution is 126-8, The resolution appropriating and amending the 2025-26 Parks and Recreation Department budget by $170,000, revenues to come from participant fees. Can I get a motion?
So made.
Second.
All right. Gordon?
Yes, Mr. Chair. These are funds that have been collected through participation in our theater program at the Performing Arts Center that's part of the Academy Park campus. That $170,000 are portions that we have to pay back out to renters, that all the people that rent our facility to put their own productions together. We handle all the ticketing. So what this money is that these are the payments that go back out to the reimburse them for their ticket sales. We do get percentages of all that, and so this is their part. Our part goes into the county's capital fund balance, or it's general fund balance.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you mark it in advance, Ms. Carolyn. All right. Next item of business is Resolution 1-26-18, a resolution amending the 5-year capital improvement program for schools, roads, fire protection, and recreation. Have a motion?
So made.
Second.
Great. All right. Gordon?
So this is an exercise that we have to go through every year. This is a result of receiving privilege tax money from the impact fees that are charged to developers in Williamson County. So part of that is this annual report. We generate a 5-year report for what we think are capital expenses that we see happening in the next budget cycle and for subsequent budget cycles. I will be more than glad to answer any questions about this, or I'll be glad to go through and explain year one. I don't know that you necessarily want to me to set up here and go through all 5 years. One thing that needs to be pointed out, once again, that this is not a funding mechanism. This is a reporting mechanism. So there's no obligation to pay any of this or to participate in funding any of this.
Any questions, comments?
I have one question. I noticed here law enforcement were against our 3 votes. Is there a reason the context behind that?
We don't have anything to do with law enforcement. This is just the portion that's, if you'll go to the very back, you'll see hours.
Okay.
So
this is a bigger-
you have law
That's right, it was
enforcement,
more
you
than-
have highway department.
It was more encompassing than this. Sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
you will.
Easier.
Okay, Commissioner Lawrence?
Gordon, so we've got your property, the 100-acre park finally coming online. I know that came with a pretty big price tag though from the state for the mitigation of the water rights. How did we work that out, or have we worked that out? Or?
So none of that really is our responsibility at this point in time. We are co-permittees, and we're fortunate to have Commissioner Clifford here tonight, who also in his day life is part of TDEC, and they are actually some of the administrators from the state level on this project. And so if I miss something, he can follow up and help explain it as well. But all of the mitigation parts are things that Dr. York has to satisfy before that property gets transferred over to the county. So when it comes to that, I really can't give you a good answer on how much that mitigation, what those mitigation fees are, the dollar amounts, but Dr. York knows that he's going to have to absorb those as part of getting the actual permit through this process. TDEC has pretty much gone almost completely through the process to, I don't think they've 100% approved it from their end, but right now, most of it's checked. So Commissioner Clifford has motioned to me that has been approved by TDEC. So now everything is in the hands of the Corps of Engineers. And the Corps, once they finish their part, which is probably going to take several more months, then we have a memorandum of understanding with Dr. York that we will then go back and use that as the tool to bring this project into the county. But there are a lot of moving parts, Commissioner Lawrence, and I really can't give you a good answer on the mitigation.
Well, when all my conversations with him, that it was such a high price that it was prohibitive for him to pay that. And he was trying to negotiate that with the state. I don't know, maybe Commissioner Clifford can shine more light on this, but.
Yeah, it's actually not a conversation with the state on the mitigation costs. It's with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So the state's issued the permit to get the project done. Now the mitigation conversations with the federal government. And they've given them some parameters, and I think from what I understand now is it's an assessment of what mitigation can happen on site versus having to buy credits, mitigation credits on the open market, which I think there's a lot of opportunity for that mitigation to happen on site. Still not cheap, but it's creating more wetland areas and things like that to offset what's being disrupted by the impoundment from the dam downstream. So I'm optimistic that the price will come down for that mitigation cost, but it will still be fairly expensive. Just the nature of that type of project.
So this project is really somewhat of a hopeful, we hope maybe possible project kind of thing, really.
He's optimistic. I just met with Dr. York last week. We speak quite often. I can sum it up like this. There is a lot of expense that he has incurred up to this point, and we'll have to continue to absorb to get this project to fruition, to be able to actually impound that blue line stream to create this lake. When he was last at the meeting with the Corps, he asked them to give him as much of a guarantee as they would be willing to give about the chances of this being approved without him having to continue to rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fees that he would never get back. So the folks from the Corps understanding that here's a man trying to do something for the greater good of the community. This is a legacy type project. He's going to donate 100 acres to the county. He's going to build a dam that he hopes will create a body of water that's going to be anywhere from 12 to 20 acres. And so he asked them, you know, as best as they could, to tell him, is this going to be something that there's a chance of it not being approved, so that he just doesn't have to spend that money that he won't be able to recover. And they gave him the green light and said to continue to proceed. Now, that doesn't mean that it will be approved, but he is banking on that acknowledgement from the Corps.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. So I guess high level view for those of us who are hearing about this potential project for the first time, like what is like the vision for this particular project? Because this is in my district out in East Williamson County. Like what is the vision and how this falls under Parks and Rec?
That's a good question. So, you know, this is a process that's been going on for years. When Dr. York acquired this property years ago, the person that he bought the property from turned right around and created a Friends of Parks trust. And I think Dr. York paid $2.5 million at the time for this 100 acres. When she passed, she left that that $2.5 million. She put it in a trust and she gave it back to Dr. York to be used to create this park. And so that was a number of years ago. When he decided and really got the passion to do this, he approached the county. Let me back up. He first approached the state of Tennessee to see if the state would be interested in acquiring that property through a donation for it to be a state park. And the state said at that particular time that they did not have any interest in bringing on another state park into their inventory. So the next step was, since it's in the county, he reached out to the mayor to see if there was any opportunity to partner with the county. At which time, the mayor brought me into the picture, and from that point on, I've sort of been the main point of contact these past, how many years, Bobby? 3 or 4 years? To kind of nurture this process along. During that time, we've been fortunate enough to get Commissioner Clifford involved through being not only a county commissioner, but also an advisor through TDEC to help make sure that the county's taking on something that would be a low risk to the county. Legal has gotten involved in it to make sure that we have a process in place to, if the dam gets approved through TDEC, check, Corps of Engineers, maybe, and all the geotech, there's a lot of geotech studies that have to be performed as well to make sure that the materials are suitable to have a dam that's not going to collapse or be compromised, years down the road. So all that due diligence has been taking place, and we've been involved in it as a co-permittee. We came before the county commission with a memorandum of understanding and explained that if Dr. York is able to successfully complete this project, upon completion of the project, he is going to turn over the 100 acres and give that to the county. He also is going to pay for the construction and all costs associated with building the dam. And that's the permits, all the money that he spent up to this point just trying to get to this stage of approval, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, Commissioner Smith, if this dam gets built, and once it is to the point of completion, then we will come back to the county commission and execute the memorandum of understanding. Our financial commitment to this is this. We will reimburse Dr. York for the cost of the dam only. So if it costs him $1.5 million to build the dam, construct the dam, that's what we will pay him to acquire the 100 acres and the dam. Once that is done, if it's approved through the commission and it becomes part of the county's parks inventory, then Dr. York at that point is going to take the money that he has in the $2.5 million in a Friends of account, and he's going to take the proceeds that we have paid him for the dam and acquiring the property, and he's going to put all of that back in developing the infrastructure for the park. Now, we will have some additional cost at some point down the road to develop this as a park because, you have to bring infrastructure in there, roads, restroom facilities, different facilities to make it a usable park. 100 acres is a good-sized piece of property that's going to have a lot of infrastructure in it. So that basically is sort of an outline of how this will play out and the steps that we will follow in order to acquire this as a park. At the end of the day, you're looking at getting a piece of property that right now is probably valued at over $10 million since it's 100 acres right on Highway 96. And on top of that land value, you're also getting all that money that he has set aside over the years to build the infrastructure up in the park itself. So this is a really good opportunity for the county to create another park that people are clamoring for. They just cannot get enough of these nature parks. If you look at the traffic at Timberland, at Peacock Hill, this is going to be a similar park. It's not going to be an active park. It's going to be a nature park. And I think Commissioner Clifford could probably, through his experience with TDEC, give you a pretty good indication of how fortunate we are to be able to be in a position to have this type of park. So I know that's a long-winded explanation, but it's as thorough as I can make it so that you can understand everything that's happened.
No, I appreciate that. That definitely helps. I was just, I guess the only other question I have is like, is the lake, is this going to be used for?
It's primarily going to be used for fishing.
Okay.
And just the fact that there's a lake there. There's not going to be any power boating crafts on the lake. And I don't know, there could be certain restrictions on the use for that. That's something that we'll have to educate ourselves on as we get further into the process. I've tried not to spend an enormous amount of time, figuring out what might happen, knowing that there are so many legislative hurdles and then bureaucratic hurdles such as the Corps to get this stuff approved. We're very fortunate that TDEC acted as quickly as they did. And that's going to be very helpful in persuading the Corps to follow suit to approve this type of legacy project. And to put it in perspective, there is not a public recreational lake in Williamson County that the public can just drive up to and get out and walk around, put a fishing pole in the water. There's not one. There are plenty of lakes in the county, but they're on private property. But this is going to be one that's going to be available for everyone to enjoy day in and day out.
You said no power boats. We talked a lot about paddlecraft. Are you still planning to allow paddlecraft, kayaks, canoes on the water?
That's something, Commissioner Clifford, that that the Corps might have an opinion on. I've had, we redlined several things that's come back and forth that where the counties had to try to explain what our vision is for the park itself. And we've been advised through folks like CEC and then Cole Liggett, who Dr. York has hired to write all this and put it together, to not put that in there at this time, to not make that commitment, for it to be strictly a fishing type lake only.
Yeah, just, I have a comment and a question. I want to underscore what you said, Gordon. There's no place in Williamson County, if you want to take your kids fishing, there's really not one. This would be, that's what makes this property and the plan for it very unique. It's providing something that we just don't have in Williamson County right now. Has Dr. York, isn't he also going to set aside money for maintenance, ongoing maintenance in the future, part of this project? Or was that, he talked to me about that at one time, but no?
No, it's my understanding that Dr. York is going to try to, once it becomes part of the county's inventory, if it ever does, we will absorb all the maintenance costs. Okay. What he is going to try to do is continue to put even his own personal resources into trying to buy additional property. His goal has always been for it not to be a 100-acre park, but to be a 200 or 300-acre park. So he is actively trying to negotiate with landowners that are near his and that share property lines to negotiate that he has first right of refusal to buy their properties if they come up for sale, so that he can make that a larger park. So he's redirecting his funds away from the maintenance part of it towards land, purchasing more land.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the intersection 96 and what?
Hawkins, it's Hawkins on one end, but you would enter the park. There's no intersection on the park. So the property is between Haley and Hawkins. Okay. So if you're familiar with where the Castle Park property is.
No, it's not.
If you're taking Highway 96 towards Murfreesboro, it's right before you get to the county line. It's on the right-hand side of the road, and it's a beautiful piece of property.
You mentioned that we will reimburse Dr. York for his cost, and I missed a number.
1.5
The
million.
number's to be decided because he does not know how much it's gonna cost to construct the dam.
So have we agreed to whatever this unknown number is, that we will reimburse it, could be 4 million? I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of what we committed to.
Well, right now, it's kind of unknown. All the surveys and everything that we've got back in pricing, nobody has indicated that it should cost more than, $2 or $2.5 million tops.
So is that really what the 2.6 is then? Is that just your estimate on, what's the feasibility of, pardon me, Chair, is it okay?
I have no
Feasibility of this actually happening this year? Sorry.
This year, low.
Okay.
Because so when you start talking about this year, this budget cycle we're talking about begins July 1 of 26, obviously. If he's able to get permission from the Corps sometime between now and then, and believe me, I have no idea of how many months, days, years it takes to do the work to build a dam to impound this water, and then for it to fill up to the point where we know it's going to hold water. So there's a lot of things that even after it starts to do that, we don't want to take control of something that is not tested and maybe could be compromised as far as whether it's going to hold. Now, I think that the geotech studies are going to give a pretty clear indication if the soils and everything are right for building that dam. Because, and Brian, you may remember this, in conversations, where the dam is, the depth there could be anywhere from 16 to 30 feet. So you're talking about a considerable, dam that has to be built. And he may have to bring materials in, because once again, the geotech stuff hasn't taken place yet. So to answer your question, it's not likely to be in this year, and we won't ask for it until we know that we have to allocate it, because we won't take that money and hold it, So, and Dr. York obviously would be in a position where he could hold that until we did get into the timing for the next budgeting cycle, if it gets pushed out that far. But we're putting it in there just because it needs to continue to stay in front of the commission, because when it does come time for this, since we put so much into it and he spent so much money and we are a co-permittee, this is part of our obligation at this point to get this done.
Commissioner Hayes, I know you have some follow-ups.
Yeah. On Benning Chestnut Park, this is a current, you're asking for, it says impact of $350,000 for staff, utilities, lawn products, and advertising. Is that, you're asking for that now, or are you asking for that in the future?
At Bending Chestnut?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so the mayor has brought in some people to explore building and creating a historic village on that property. We could go into a lot on that, but basically, Bending Chestnut is out there in your neck of the woods. It's a 350
I know that you were doing
approximate.
cleanup on that property.
There was a brag grant that was applied to make sure that we didn't have any contaminated areas out there, which came back clean, so that's good.
Good.
But Bending Chestnut has been in the county's inventory ever since we did a land swap with the city of Franklin.
Well, my horse people want there to be horse trails, by the way.
And which it very well could be.
Yeah.
So the thing that we're trying to do is, we have some people that want to give some money to get something started out there. And you're going to see something come before the commission here pretty soon. I'm pretty sure where there's going to be a financial donation made to try to get this historic village started. And so what you see in there, that $350,000, is just money to help with planning and to get a plan started so that that's something that can eventually take place. Because the county needs to either do something with this property. Commissioner Lawrence and I have been out there several times. He's had people that he's talked about doing other things out there. But it's
I would have loved to know you were visiting. I would have loved to have gone.
well, you know, we can get you out there anytime you'd like. But it's a great resource. It's got unbelievable water features on it. It's where the city of Franklin got their drinking water for a number of years. If you go out in that part of the county, you'll see the pump houses all along the way from there all the way to Carter's Creek Pike. So it's got a lot of history behind it. It's got unbelievable natural resources. And so we're just trying to get something started. And this is something that's the mayor is wanting to do, to have some kind of direction out there before he leaves office.
I would love to have some input on that, by the way, since it is in my neck of the woods. Because I do have horse people who would probably donate money to help build that out. So happy to help if I can.
Comments or questions? All right, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we mark it unanimous, Ms. Carolyn. All right, last resolution is 1-26-25, a resolution to convey Williamson County's interest in real property commonly referenced as the Fairview Ballpark to the city of Fairview and authorizing the county mayor to execute all documents needed to convey the property. Have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Gordon?
So this is,
Let me give the history on this,
okay,
because of the issues we had. I'm going to explain this one. We had a lot of.
if you don't mind, Bob, will you come up here so she can?
So we had a lot of legal issues come up with this property. I'm going to give you a little bit of the background and explain to you why the resolution's written the way it is. This property was purchased by Fairview back in the 70s, early 70s, through a federal grant. That federal grant restricted the use of that property. While they owned that property, a tower was built on it, which violated the federal conditions that they placed on that grant. Because they did that, when they donated, Fairview then donated the property to the county. It was after they donated the property to the county, we found out about this. And we spent 3 years going back and forth with the federal government to get approval of a tower that we told them, you want us to tear it down, it's going to hurt our EMA services. And they were like, okay. So we obviously weren't going to tear it down. So we went through this process. It's a conversion process where you have to obtain property the same amount that is on the tower. So we had to find 0.1 acre of property to replace the property that we conveyed. To do this, we discovered that the entranceway into that park was actually on the Lions Club property that is adjacent to the park. When we discovered this, we entered into an agreement with Fairview Lions Club that they would donate that 0.1 acre to the county so we could satisfy that federal requirements and get out of the violation. In turn, we entered into a long-term lease for them to use that property for the entrance, and the county agreed, we'll maintain it. That's the history of this. So it's got a lot of history. As I understand, Fairview has come now and has got a private individual that would like to donate money to do that. I guess they feels like Fairview should have control of the park. And so Fairview mayor has come to our mayor and asked for us to donate the property back. As you'll see in the resolution, we are very clear that it's going to be conditioned on that lease agreement with the Lions Club being maintained. So basically what this does, it just transfers that property to the city of Fairview, who will then be responsible for maintaining that park, and it will become one of their parks. It'll be taken out of our inventory.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So how much have we spent on this property thus far?
I cannot tell you. I do understand though.
About the ballpark?
Yeah, the ballpark. I do understand, though, we are in discussions. I'm not involved in it, so this is secondhand. that we are asking for reimbursement of improvements we made in the last couple of years with the lights. We changed all lights out.
It's
What about all the-
around $150,000.
What about all the legal fees we've incurred by going up, down, backwards, up, forward, and the tower and all that jazz?
That was back in '06 to '10, we went through that. So that, the resolution just transfers the property interest back to the city of Fairview.
And the donation would be to cover the 150?
Oh, you're talking,
We're talking about the private donation you mentioned. Just trying to connect the
Yeah,
dots.
so the mayor, our Mayor Anderson, talking to their Mayor Anderson, has put some conditions out there. And some of those are to be reimbursed for some of the capital expenses that we've made just in the past couple of years. We're not going to go back a number of years, but we're trying to collect the recent capital expenses that we're still paying the bond debt on. So anything that was funded through bond debt from years ago, we've gotten our use out of that by serving the residents of the community. All the active bond debt, we're trying to get that back.
Can we get a detailed accounting of that bond debt?
I'm sorry?
Can we get a detailed accounting of that bond debt so we know what that looks like?
Well, to be quite honest with you, the, those, pardon me?
I feel a little blind without knowing that number.
Well, so as I'm thinking about it right now, we actually didn't use bond debt on those lights. So if you'll remember this, we came to you
Is
with
Schneider
a-
Electric?
No, ma'am.
No.
We came to you a year and a half ago. We had bond debt set aside to replace lights at all of the different parks in the county. Fairview requested to get at the front of the list because they had a big tournament that they were hosting. And in order to make the impression for this big tournament, they were willing to get to the front of the list, and they said, if we can get it moved up, we will pay for half of the lights. So in order to do that, Commissioner Jones sponsored a resolution for the county to pay for half of the lights, and the city of Fairview paid for the other half of the lights. So that didn't come out of bond debt. That, I believe, came out of the county fund balance. Yes, ma'am.
And that's gonna be part of the reimbursement?
That's correct.
Yeah, I would prefer to get a detailed accounting, so I'm gonna abstain. I'm not gonna vote on something, I don't know the numbers. It just seems kinda like spitball.
We haven't made any investments out there in the park with bond debt in probably,
Done some renovations to the concession stand.
and we did that out of operating.
Yeah, it's not
Capital.
So Commissioner Hayes, there's really nothing that we can pull together that's a detailed report other than the cost for the lights. Because everything else that's happened out there, the Rec Association has pretty much paid for it. They've paid for the batting cages, they've paid for all the other things. Because that's the relationship that we have with the Rec Associations. They participate as partners in making upgrades in the parks. And so I can go back and give you a copy of the billing and the invoices for the lights out there, but I don't think we have anything else that would be given to the mayor of Fairview as part of a reimbursement package.
Yeah, it would be nice to have something just so we know what we're agreeing to. I mean, I like to know numbers, I like to know what we're getting in for. So,
Well, we're not getting in for anything, we're receiving back.
well, that's what I'm saying, what are we agreeing to as far as an exchange when we've spent money? And that's why I'm hired, is to look at the financials and fiscal responsibilities of this. I just want to know so I can speak to it if somebody asks me. Why are we giving up this park and only getting 150? What does that entail? Because I do have people that call me and ask me, so that'd be great if I could get something. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so they donated this to us, right? We didn't pay anything for it. And then we incurred some legal expenses because of the tower issue, which we ended up rectifying with the lease with the Lions Club. So really, we've been paying some lease amount to the Lions. Okay, so it's a $0 lease. But net, when this is done, if they agree to the 150 that we've done in the capital improvements, your operational expenses should go down somewhat because now we're not having that on the operational side of the equation. So I guess what Commissioner Hayes is just asking for is like, how does this balance out? Like, we're going to get this much back, so we're going to 150,000 back. We're going to give them control, but is there a number that can say this is what the county savings are going to look like? Because now we've given responsibility back over to the city of Fairview.
There is, and I can get you that because Commissioner Jones requested that several weeks ago. I put that number together for him because he wanted to share it with some of his constituents in the city of Fairview. Our annual cost out there for maintenance and lights, mowing, and everything comes to a little over $50,000 a year. So that will come off the books for the county. So it's not a whole lot, but it's still something that the city of Fairview is going to have to pick up. And so they know that. It also needs to be noted that the city of Fairview has not approved this internally yet either. So their mayor and board of commissioners has to approve it.
So whatever you send Commissioner Jones, I would appreciate seeing as well, just so I'm on an equal footing and understand what's going on.
Yes, ma'am. I can get that to you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? All right, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got that, Ms. Gallen? All right. No more resolutions, and we'll move on to just other business, which I asked Carolyn to put this on just regarding the emails that we've received regarding the Sports Association contract. I think what I'd like to understand is maybe from legal first, kind of just y'all's perspective on how we ended up here versus kind of like where we started prior. And then I think Commissioner Clifford is here, I think, for this agenda item.
I'm here for a lot of things.
So I think it was really meant to be an opportunity just to understand kind of the history and kind of where we are today, and then allow us to ask any questions that we have of either legal or the park staff. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to give the legal background. So we earlier this year announced to the athletic associations that they would need to be compliant with the Safe Stars Act, which is a Tennessee law that requires youth athletic associations using county or publicly owned property, which the counties would apply, to meet certain safety criteria. And the biggest thing is to have one person present at all activities that has been trained in CPR, AED, and there's a few different trainings required. So we notified them of that, and I believe Parks did a talk to, where they could ask questions and, directed them to some resources. I came into all this summer, maybe about July, August. IPIRB was prepared the limited use agreements for all the athletic associations for this year. And the main change for that agreement is to be compliant with the Safe Stars Act. There was some concern from the reorganizations too that you heard from tonight about being compliant, the burden of being compliant with Safe Stars and the liability that they would incur under the agreement. The liability language is actually the same language from the year before, but I was happy to work with the organizations to draft it in a way that they were more comfortable with while also preserving the county's interests. The county is not able by law to take on anyone else's liability. So if another organization is going to use the county's property, that organization has to be responsible for the damages they incur to the property. The county is responsible for their own, for everything else, or for the things that the county's responsibility, but, and so that's the language, is that, they will be responsible, the organization will be responsible for damages incurred by their activities. We met with EWA, CGA, and Bethesda in September to get discuss the contract and their issues with the contract. I tried to answer their questions and understand, what their issues were, and I tried to explain the county's position and where we were with especially those items that they had concerns about. I've been emailing back and forth with them with different acts and revisions since then. We have Bethesda and CGA have now signed their agreements. EWA has not. And I've told all of them I'm happy to, throughout this process, if you have questions or comments, I'm happy to respond. I can't change the county's position on, statutes, but I'm happy to explain them, or, and Parks has been really great about providing some compromises on maintenance of the fields and use of the fields and things that are in our control to change. So that's where we are from the legal standpoint. And then I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
All right, I'll try to do this somewhat orderly, given I'm sure there may be many questions. So I think I may just start with committee members first. I'll start with Commissioner Allen, and I'm just going to work this way, and then I'll come back to you, Commissioner Clifford.
I didn't raise my hand.
I'm trying to keep us moving. Commissioner Snell.
So we have all sorts of organizations that rent out our park facilities and use them for different purposes. And so I guess my mind was going to, my kids did Christian Youth Theater for a long time in the Academy, at Academy Park. Is there any difference in the language of a contract that you use for renting a facility like that and the use of it versus a contract like this where we have ball, sports organizations using our facilities and the liability?
We, the agreements for the use of our outdoor facilities are the same. They include the same language with the Safe Start. Now, what you're talking about is not athletic. You're talking about the arts. So these requirements, the Safe Star requirements, are not going to apply to that theater group.
So the Safe Stars encompasses the limited use language?
The Safe Star language, yes. We've actually pulled the language almost word for word, those requirements, and included them in the contract.
Okay. So this really stems from the state?
Yes, the state.
So the state is pushing, and I'm sure we're not the only county in this that has Parks and Recs established that's dealing with the same issue. I don't even know how many counties actually have a fully developed Parks and Rec department. Yeah, you'd probably know better. But is this something that if we wanted to advocate on behalf of these volunteer organizations, that we really have to go to the state and say, hey, this is the impact of these regulations that you're pushing down to the local level?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we have done in the past when there was legislation that did have a negative was commissioners would pass a resolution or bring a resolution requesting changes in the law. I believe Commissioner Lawrence brought one last year that didn't see the floor, but it's similar to that, where you would ask the state, look, these are the concerns that we're faced down here. We're asking if our legislative guys, our 3 reps and our senators say, these are changes that we need to take a look at and exempt. There's ways to exempt organizations that are small.
So maybe was that really our best course of action here? Absolutely. Is to have a resolution to push back since General Session's getting ready to start, and maybe there's something out there that we can amend. But to have a resolution to go to our state delegation and say, listen, this is creating unexpected consequences, and it's really straining our volunteer organizations and the service that they're trying to provide.
Sure. And the other option is they take your calls, your commissioners, so your state reps are going to take your calls and fit a bug in their ear and say, look.
So I would like to explore that as an option, because I feel like a lot of this has gotten back and forth between our Parks and Rec, our county attorneys, and the volunteers that are trying to do what they can for the community.
Right.
So,
And we're stuck because the law says what it says.
yeah, I love it. I love it when they just create problems in our local government, in our organizations. Okay, I would like to explore that with you, Bobby. I'd be more than happy to sponsor something like that.
Call me in the morning.
Okay,
I'm in the office after 9, so just call me anytime.
okay.
Do you have anything, Commissioner Moore?
I have two questions. Number one, so Sarah, you said there was no change to the liability from the clauses from last year to this year?
No, now, we've negotiated back and forth, I have changed the language or added a line or so, but as far as the coverage, I haven't changed who is liable, but what was presented to them at the beginning was as last year, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
We had the same language in last year's contract with the first draft that we had here. That draft has since been amended. That language was amended based on comments we received from the organization. So when we started the process, it was the exact same language that was in last year's contract. It has since been amended based on comments we received.
Oh, okay. My understanding, and I have an email from Jonathan Doolard, but unfortunately I can't pull up all my wonderful Apple product will not show the red lines in the Word document, so I can't speak to some of the specifics, but I don't really think the Safe Stars is the biggest issue here from what I'm hearing from the organization, that this is, that part of it, having someone available that has those qualifications, I think Commissioner Clifford probably will be weighing in on this as well, but I don't see that as the ultimate hurdle here with the contract, but there were other issues regarding equipment, park facilities, liabilities regarding those things, the condition of the facilities after use, that may or may not be within the scope of what the actual association was participating in. In other words, other people using the park at the same time, creating damages. So they didn't want to have excess liability regarding those things.
And that was part of the, during the negotiations, that was language added, I believe, to all three of the contracts to clarify that they are only liable for their organization's activities. If another organization, members of the public, are come to the park for something else, that's not part of the organization's liability.
They would not be liable for the action of those people that were not related to their
Okay.
property. With the new language that she included.
Okay, so can you, I know we can't really dialogue with our residents here, so can you explain to me then what are the objections? Why would EWA not want to sign this?
You want to see the last red? I got the last red line.
Okay.
Can we make a motion to suspend the rules so we can't ask questions of the public?
I think the chair be allowed.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what's.
Yeah, we can suspend the rules and ask questions of the EWA that's here, I think.
Anybody want to address?
Can
we allow them?
Anybody want to address, we'll suspend our rules and
So that's why we can ask you a
we
question.
can ask questions. Carolyn, will you note that? Thank you.
Yes.
All right. You want to ask? Why don't you start?
I guess, again, I'm restating the question. Why don't you want to sign this? Basically, what are the issues?
So just a point of clarification. So where we started with, back in early fall and meeting with the county attorneys and representatives from Parks and Rec, we initially gave the county attorneys, I wouldn't call it a red line, but a contract markup with a whole litany of comments as to why we had issues with each section. The response we received at that time was, in reply, was, we can't make any changes to the contract. This was in early November, is that correct? And you need to sign it by such and such date, or the implication was that we would be replaced by someone who would sign it. So that initial offer to negotiate the contract and the terms of the contract was not really met at that point in time. And after which we, as a board, we decided that we needed to engage our participant families and let them know what EWA was facing. We have a board of 7 volunteers that tries to manage the different sports that we participate in, making sure we have coaches that, volunteer coaches that can lead these teams, that, practices are scheduled, that, Parks and Rec makes the game schedules for basketball and softball and amongst other things. And so our interpretation, based on the response from the attorney's office, that the negotiations were over, that there were going to be no changes. So we made that, that's when you all started receiving emails, after which we started hearing back that saying, hey, negotiations are open. So right before Christmas, I sent Sarah a different tone, I guess a different level of markup for the contract, which is what I believe Mr. Cook has in hand. And most of those changes were made. Understand that that's not a complete, that red line version is the best we hope to get. I guess that's the way to put it.
Usually agreed to this.
That's the, my edit.
Yeah, the
So
one
this
you gave.
isn't everything, this is the one I sent back to you.
And we've agreed to this?
That's what I sent
Well,
back.
we had notice that they were going to sign the contract based on those terms.
Okay,
That's
yes,
true.
we've agreed to this.
We're in a situation where either we can sign and preserve EWA's 30-year history of helping Parks and Rec serve the community, or we can be replaced. We made a last-ditch effort to get some small changes that made us feel a little bit more comfortable about our rest of the facility, and they have made some changes to our facility liability, changed that language so we can interpret that as, well, these open facilities to the, facilities that are open to the public, we're not going to be arbitrarily assigned fault just because we're operating baseball or softball at that facility simultaneously. While Parks and Rec has said, hey, that would never happen, now us volunteers are having to deal with attorneys. We don't have representation to fight on our behalf. So, we're disadvantaged in that regard. And so it's trying to create that language that, hey, some assurances that we won't be assigned fault, that we're not going to be responsible when somebody has a July 4th party inside the women's bathroom at the park, that we're not going to be responsible to pay for those damages. Or when somebody comes to the park and damages the field and tears something up.
So when you use the words heavy-handed, is that what you're referring to, just that it was?
So I will go
Just so
back
I
to
understand.
the statements that were made that the change in Tennessee law requires us to be in compliant with Tennessee Safe Stars. The law says the organizer of the sport is responsible.
The organization.
It says the organizer of the activity is responsible.
It defines that later in the code, though, as the youth athletic organization that has.
Who is the organizer? So how do you define organizer?
So
Parks and Rec has admitted
Hold on.
that they are.
So, again, I know there's a lot of passion around this, and I brought this as an agenda item because I wanted to have this discussion tonight in a smaller venue instead of it going on Monday night. So I would appreciate, let's not get into a back and forth.
Okay.
I think what Commissioner Lawrence was trying to get to, if I may speak for you for a minute, is just really just trying to understand what are the main sticking points that are causing EWA heartburn to sign it. My experience with contracts is that typically every clause is written because something bad has happened, right? Or it's trying to prevent something bad from happening. And so, I'm trying to get grounded on like where we have been as a county, youth organizations. I know Commissioner Clifford has spent some time digging into this. So, first, I would just ask, let's try to limit the back and forth, but let's really try to get to the substance of what we're trying to understand and why I asked this to be an agenda item, which is help us understand what the heartburn is. It sounds like everybody's still negotiating in good faith.
I mean, we've indicated to the attorney's office that we are going to sign. I mean, that isn't the latest revision that Sarah has provided. We think that provides some assurances that, we can move forward. It doesn't take away the burden of some of the compliance areas that, for Tennessee Safe Stars in particular, that we're concerned about.
Sure.
We're having to make a lot of decisions on, about that and how can we have 7 days a week, different teams at various county parks under our, and now that we have to absorb all the risk for that, and, develop it's not as simple as a coach has to be, or someone has to be present as CPR, AEDs, the various, the 5 different requirements is we have to develop certain policies, plans, procedures, that address safety and make sure everybody's trained and understands those. So when we go to another facility, whether it be College Road, Brentwood, Grayson, what have you, what have they done? Are they complying in good faith to the terms of Tennessee Safe Stars? Because there's no leadership in terms of, hey, this is exactly what you need to do. Or there's no uniformity in, hey, all of your organizations are going to compete in this league. You all need to be doing the same things. We're adding a participant waiver to our signups so that we limit some of our personal risk. I have one house to give, and I really don't want to give it. And that's what the burden here is. And really, when you think about it, we do this because we believe in what recreational sports offers to the children of this community. I believe Parks and Rec wants to provide that service, and I believe the county wants to provide that service for all ability levels, all groups to be able to come and learn something about softball, learn something about baseball, learn something about self-confidence, learn that these kids can achieve more than they thought they could, just through a little bit of hard work, but I think Jonathan, he's our director of baseball, and I think he has a comment to help address your question more directly.
Yeah, my name's Jonathan, director of baseball. Is big titles for volunteer to coach my kids, and ultimately, for me, where I stand on this and this agreement in general, one is the community, and we're out in East Williamson. We're probably the smallest amongst the organizations in terms of participants. We're certainly begging parents, families, moms and dads to volunteer, to help, to get involved. We want to do what's right for the kids, and service the community, as best we can with the little ability that we have. And honestly, I got involved because I didn't think the fields were being maintained as well as they could have. That's the only reason I did it. And I said, I think I can get us playing more games and sooner after rain, and I think I can, we can make it a better experience for the kids. To be honest with you, this makes me want to get out, and that's where a lot of my concern. You asked what our biggest concerns are for this. We don't have a bunch of attorneys that we can lean on to read this to us, to help us understand it. We sought counsel. They gave us their opinion of the language. We made our comments back. So, there is a component where it's liability. Like Charles said, I think it's a great line. We only got the one house to give, but the point is also is we need the community to stay actively involved and engaged, to facilitate the programs, to have head coaches, to have assistant coaches, and this is going to limit us and our ability to keep moms and dads volunteering.
Okay. Let me go to Commissioner Hayes first. I know
I just want to say,
go ahead.
I don't think my question has really been answered, though. I mean, just the specific. I said we know. So we got the Safe Stars Act, and you're acknowledging that is an issue. So
yeah.
But that's a state law. We can, we can try to get that changed. But so. What else? What are the other issues besides that? Are there any other issues besides that one that you have a real problem with this contract?
Well, originally, our interpretation was that liability and damage caused to the field, to the complex was at the discretion of the director. Love you, Mr. Gordon. But, you know, there were things in here where the feedback that we're getting and our interpretation when we're reading it is going, look, if somebody comes in and damages the bathrooms, which we've had experience with because it is a county park, there's a firework display that goes out and goes off, you know, the neighborhood across the street. And, you know, we've got kids that have broken into the bathrooms and it read like, you know, hey, at the discretion of Williamson County Parks and Rec, the user is responsible for that damage. And so there were things where we put in the original as saying, you know, if provided damage is caused by the user, or to the best of our ability and those things. And I think to Charles's point is in this last agreement, if we're close, you know, we can get comfortable in continuing to do this. I mean, you know, I'm not going to read our red line changes that were submitted. Some of them I felt like were pretty benign that didn't get consideration. But the Safe Stars is another. I mean, I would say, you know, I don't know if I can quantify in a percentage of where the bigger concern was. I think it was the totality of it. You know, I mean, we went from a 3-page user agreement to a 12, so it's not the same agreement. You know, from what has been signed in the past.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna go to Commissioner Hayes. Do you have anything?
Can we get copies of you said it went from a 3 to a 12 page? Can we get it?
You want a copy of the last year's contract?
Yeah, please. Thank you for what you do, because it does matter. I was a product of association sports, and I have many great memories, and it created a lot of character building opportunities, so thank you. And I'm sorry that, you know, sometimes it's just the legalese can get stiff, but thank you for speaking up. We appreciate it.
Can I add a statement to that?
Give me 1 second. Okay, Commissioner Murphy. Yep, you know, I guess holistically, I think we need to be in a place where we're supporting small organizations like this. Our family chose to play at EWA, and I've seen Jonathan out there. He spends more time there maybe than his even full-time job. It's impressive what this man does for free and contributes to the community. He's not the only one doing it. And we chose that organization because we wanted a family atmosphere for our son. He started very young. He was 5, I think, when they were out there. And that was perfect. He wasn't just a roster number in a big organization with coaches and kids he doesn't know. And that's the thing that we wanted. And there's a lot of families that want that. So I think holistically, we need to be in a place where we have a policy framework that supports these volunteer organizations to operate in our county. We don't need to all go in favor of big organizations because not everybody wants that. And I think what we're doing is we're slowly stifling them out. We're requiring more, we're becoming more risk averse. I think to do that and support an environment that encourages these volunteer youth organizations, there's gonna have to be some assumption of risk. Now, there may be some legal limits to our assumption of risk, but in everything that organizations do, there's always an assumed risk. You can always try to minimize your risk, and that's what lawyers are really good at, is trying to minimize risk for the client they represent. But sometimes you can decide to assume a little bit of risk so that things like this can happen. And that's, you as a client are able to make those decisions. And I encourage us to think about how we do that to support youth organizations and these volunteer organizations. The Safe Stars thing, I was encouraging more safety in the county. Had conversations with the Parks Department following some incidents, even with my own daughter, and the indoor soccer complex got several concussions back to back. It was real hectic out there. And so we had a conversation of how can we promote more safety in sports. And that, I think, generated a review of the Safe Stars program. And then the lawyers looked at it and said, okay, there's actually some legal requirements we have to do. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that there is a law that we must comply with. There is issue to interpretation of that because there's not a body of case law around it. There's not any real judicial decisions or any government level agency that creates rulemaking to interpret it. So it's largely, and you heard it, an example of it just right there. We don't do a whole lot of interpreting law in other areas. So in this instance, I think if there's a potential where we don't have to interpret it, we can just simply say you must comply with Safe Stars to the extent it applies to you. And that would, liability is where it is on state law. So I think that's something we can talk about. I don't think we have to interpret it. And that's where a lot of that, even I've had some back and forth with Bobby and them about where I feel like we need to be, because I don't agree with some of the interpretations, but I don't think we have to interpret it. It's state law. I don't think we have to regurgitate state law or add interpretations of state law just to tell someone they need to comply with state law. That's part of it. But then the liability piece, the 3-page, the 12-page, there was a lot added there that made them very uncomfortable. And I read it, and when it was presented as literally the email they got said non-negotiable. I read the email, and if I were them, I'd be like, holy shit, holy crap. Like that's intimidating to do that, to look at it and see these things and not have any method of negotiation because you've been told it's non-negotiable. That's just another way I think we're stifling the ability for volunteers to feel like they can provide this service in our county. And they don't want to have to provide it. The Parks Department can't provide it. So we have to either rely on volunteers or other organizations to do it. And at the end of the day, we've just got to figure out how we can create an environment to keep it here, not drive them away. And so whatever we have to do with the contracts, meaningful negotiations, there's going to be some limits, I know, that we just have to do because state law requires it and we can't assume every risk. But I think there's some risks that we can't assume as a county to make our volunteers more comfortable. So it sounds like we're going to get through this year, but this is going to come up again next year. And so between now and then, I don't know if it's a resolution that we put together that provides a county policy about supporting youth volunteer-based organizations and what level of risk or however we want to craft a resolution. Maybe we have to do that before next year. But I know this conversation is not going to go away just because we got these things signed this year, because they're still upset. College Grove has frustrations. They said we felt like we just had to sign it, so we signed it. This is all going to come back again next year. This is not done. I know it's not done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think what one thing that I would propose is that, we get through this year, and then to Commissioner Clifford's point is, figuring out if it's via resolution. I think we need to go down the path of the state. I also think we need to look at it from a county perspective and figure out, do we need to codify it a little bit differently via resolution that goes through property, Parks and Rec, and then ultimately to the full commission. The other thing too, and I don't know this, but I suspect, I'll ask a question rather than make an assumption. Was there any early signal given to the organizations that this was coming?
Do you mean regarding Safe Stars or in general?
That the change to the use agreement was coming with all these additional requirements?
They were notified of the Safe Stars was going to be added a few months before they got.
We had meeting. We actually had a meeting with all the organizations, and I went through what the requirements are and what was coming down the pipe.
Okay, but then all the additional provisions, though, I guess, is where I'm
those
going.
I provided to them in August. At some signs, some provided feedback, back and forth. We met with them in September. They said they would provide me red lines. I received nothing for months. And that's when I sent, kept requesting, and then we got some red lines. So as far as the liability, no, that was when they received the contract, but they received that back in August. Mm-hmm. And then in November is when I said we really need to get this rolling so that the sports start in 2026. Either sign this or provide some comments.
Yeah. I guess where I'm going is just thinking like process improvement for next year. To Commissioner Clifford's point is like, how do we maybe provide a little early guidance to these organizations that says, hey, okay, Safe Stars, we're doing this. That's great. We had the conversation. Here's some additional things that we're contemplating as a result of that. We'll have some additional language for you to review. And then I know it's sometimes hard to evaluate language in parts and pieces outside of the whole. But sometimes what I've learned in negotiating contracts in healthcare is that sometimes if you can have some preliminary discussions around those big items, then it's a little more digestible when you get the full document and you're reviewing it, because you've already kind of primed the pump around those things. So I think Commissioner Clifford, I think your idea is a good one, and I think we should take that as an action item for at some point between now and budget season to figure out and work with you all on like what's the right mechanism to do that. So.
Follow-up question statement.
Sure.
So just to kind of circle back to what we talked about earlier, because I think, Bobby, you even mentioned that there's a possibility of doing some exemptions. Like, what would that actually look like? So if we wanted...
Yeah, what I was thinking, when I talk exemption, I mean, it would take a change in the state law.
Okay. So
And that would be basically, here's the law, we would like to exempt organizations with
volunteer organizations.
number of volunteer or number of participants, say it's 300, I'm just throwing that number out there.
Okay.
300 do not have to comply with the requirements.
And you see that quite a bit. You see, based on the structure of the organization, that you can see an exemption occur. And because I will state that my kids did college growth athletics, and those organizations just don't run without volunteers. And I can absolutely understand all the work. You know, you go out to College Grove and the amount of man hours that the volunteers have put in to those parks out there. I can understand where that concern is like I'm trying to do something good for the community. I don't want to get penalized if something goes awry because of all the good that I'm trying to do. So I want to say, first off, I just really appreciate what you guys do. As a parent of those same organizations, I really appreciate it. And I just think that we have to, being a family-centric county, we want to do all we can to make sure all of our kids can participate in these sports, and it's not just down to the kids that can afford to do club sports or kids that can afford to do some of the higher end sports. Because we've been there. I know the kids that participate in these, and I also know the scholarships you guys provide to these kids. And I think that at the end of the day, what are we trying to do here? What is our end goal? And I think you articulated it earlier, is that we want to give the kids a chance to be part of that community. And these organizations really are at the heart, especially of our young athletes in those communities. So I just want to thank you for, all that you do, and just let you know that you do have, I think everyone here wants to support you the best we can.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to unsuspend the rules.
Before you do that,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
First of all, thank you for your comments. I want to offer another pathway, if you will. I have, in my role at EWA, I've reached out to other youth organizations within Franklin, the city of Franklin, within Rutherford County, this is a state law. If I listen to Mr. Cook here and in his interpretation of this statute, that I'm responsible, well, then what are the other organizations doing? And to be honest, I haven't received a whole lot of input, but what I have received back from the city level of Franklin is they have no idea what Tennessee Safe Stars is. So my question to this committee is, how are other Tennessee government, county governments or whatever, or city, responding to Tennessee Safe Stars? Because I don't think that they're all implementing their risk management the same way necessarily, with making the volunteer organizations manage basically staffing a park with a designated individual to meet the requirements of Tennessee Safe Stars. So I think there's some other solutions that maybe we can partner with in trying to figure out if we can't get the state law changed, well then how can we better meet the requirements in partnership with each other? And I'm perfectly willing to do that. And I think the members of EWA would welcome that, to partnership on, hey, we can agree to do this and provide these certifications that we're meeting this obligation to you, the county and I think, because of right now, it's not clear who's responsible for what, at least to us.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Carolyn, we're going to unsuspend the rules so we can, I'll just talk to him after.
Okay.
Any other business for the committee?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Every year, we meet with the associations in the spring. We have been doing this for 30 years. all the associations together. We go over all the sports for a whole year cycle. We talk about rule changes, park changes, etc. We've never wavered from that. So there is a lot of communication that goes on back and forth every year. In addition to that, the sports that we administer, and they refer to those, basketball, girls softball, before those seasons even start, all participants from every organization meets with the Parks Department, and we go over all the guidelines for those particular programs for those particular seasons. So we do meet every year. We have guidelines. We ask for people to turn in their financial reports. There's a lot of transparency. There's a lot of back and forth, and it's been very, very, very productive for a number of years. They can speak freely. They can complain. They can compliment. Nothing is taken personally, and we try to improve based off that regular correspondence in those regular meetings. So when we approach this, beginning in April, all the way through, we have tried to maintain dialogue the entire time. And my suggestion, once again, is that I understand everything that they're talking about. And I don't disagree with any of the points that they're trying to make. However, I think that sometimes we can put too much ahead of us and get out in front of ourselves. I wrote a letter to all the commissioners explaining the park's position on this, and I do think that the thing to do is let's give this an opportunity to be put into place. Let's give every one of these associations the opportunity to gather information of everything that makes it hard for them to be able to perform this vital service that we require. And let's come back in a year and let's take a look at it. And anything that they can really put out there that is a hardship, then I think we owe it to them to try to find some, level ground so that we can reach some compromises. But we have to start somewhere. We're holding them up right now from being able to get into these next registration phases where it's going to back them up to be able to order uniforms and get everything lined up. So we need to get this ball rolling. And I think that we're on the right path of all the associations, whether they're signing under duress or not, I can't make a statement to that. However, with the exception of EWA, all the others have signed. And so they're willing to go into this process for this year and let's evaluate it. And you have a commitment from this department to be very open-minded and receive all the feedback that we need to make this work for everybody.
All right. If there is nothing else, we will adjourn. Appreciate everybody's comments. I'll talk to you in a minute. All right. Thanks, everybody.